You are listening to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour, a podcast released on the first 3 Wednesdays of the month. Family crisis, relationship crisis, addiction crisis, no two crisis situations are the same. They vary by family, individual, and relationship. They can encompass complex family dynamics, emotional distress, anger issues, and entitlements, and often involve substance abuse. This podcast addresses these issues and others surrounding the addiction epidemic currently plaguing this country and the world. There is hope and help.
Are you stuck, scared, or unsure of what to do next? If a situation with a loved one, spouse, or even a child has started to spiral, possibly becoming dangerous or threatening, it's time to seek help. My name is Scott H. Silverman. I help families navigate crisis situations. I'm the person you turn to in order to get you and your loved ones unstuck.
Welcome back to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. This is Michael Glenn Moore. Scott, I just realized something today. We've had our podcast for a little over a year now, and we haven't once talked about your existing book that you wrote that's on Amazon, and we haven't discussed anything about your upcoming book. So why don't we take a few minutes here this morning or this afternoon to talk a little bit about your book and your book you have coming up very soon.
Well, that'd be great, Michael. You know, as a talking head, if anybody ever heard you say that out loud, that I haven't mentioned my book or my new book, they would say that something's really wrong. Either you've edited out or, you know, I'm just getting too old and I'm forgetting about it. So anyway, it's good to see you, Michael, and welcome, Ilyssa. We'll introduce you in just a second. So I'm Scott H. Silverman, and welcome to Happy Hour. And about the books, for those of you who don't know, the first book was written in 2008. It's called Tell Me No, I Dare You. It's all about how to get to yes. And the new book that's coming out, you can see behind me, or in this actually clever little preview of a background on Zoom, The Opioid Epidemic. Very excited about this book. I've actually been working on it for nearly 3 years, just because I'm not a great writer and I have to defer to others. But now with Ilyssa in my life, I'm going to have some real talent that I can lean on. And the book's all about what's happening right now in today's world. And it's very, very obviously topical. And, you know, we talk a lot about that on Happy Hour, about what's going on in the world. But today we have a real special topic we're going to cover. And as far as I'm concerned, medication, self-medication, mood-altering substances enter into the topic we'll be talking about today. So let me tell you a little bit about our guest. Oh, before I forget, though, for those of you, when you hear this, you know, and I was looking, Michael, on Podbean, you know, we've got almost 6,000 downloads, and we're trying to get to 10,000 by the end of, I hope, April, maybe May, and the book should be coming out very soon, because we want to make sure that people know that there is hope and help. So don't forget, 619-993-2738, 619-993-2738. And I don't give out my phone number because I like giving out my phone number. I give out my phone number because I want you to call me. Text me. If I can't help you, I assure you I'll find somebody who can, just like our expert today. So Ilyssa Panitz, is that correctly pronounced? Is a divorce journalist and columnist. She writes a daily column on Authority magazine on a medium called 5 Things You Need to Know How to Survive and Thrive and After Divorce. Ilyssa also serves on the content editorial producer for the National Association of Divorce Professionals and is the co-host of All Things Divorce on Clubhouse every Wednesday and Sunday evenings. And I understand that if things go well today, Ilyssa has invited me to join her on one of those as well. During the course of her career, Ilyssa has worked at CNN, MSNBC, 1010 Winds Radio in New York, WCBS-AM, New York One News, Westwood One, Star Magazine, Closer Magazine, Meredith Publishing. Among some of the big events Ilyssa has covered include the Tony Awards, MTV Movie Awards, the Television Network Upfronts, the 2002 Summer Olympic Games in London, the September 11 attacks on America, the NBA Finals, 1994-95 Major League Baseball strike. Ilyssa actually is best known for her role as a celebrity reporter. This is impressive, Ilyssa, a celebrity reporter, where she produces hundreds of celebrity at-home photo shoots and conducted sit-down interviews with some of the biggest names in Hollywood. And I know Michael's thinking now, oh my God, how in God's name did he get such a hoity-toity guest on for Happy Hour? Well, you know, she owes me a lot of money, I hope, Michael, and we're going to get it from her one way or another. So with that, Ilyssa, let me just welcome you to our Happy Hour. And boy, are you going to be able to talk about a sub, you know, here in California, I think the divorce rate is somewhere north of 57%. And that number was before COVID. So we know that we're watching all these celebrities. There's a lot of people having babies now. There's also a lot of people that are waiting to get into courts, which have been closed for the last 6 or 9 months. So first, tell us a little bit about you and what you think our viewers and listeners would like to know about who you are. And then I've got a couple of questions that you and I've worked on, and we'll get right into the interview. But tell us some and more about who you are.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor. I've always wanted to be a journalist. I love being a journalist. I thrive on it. I think the best thing for me is I've always been a people person. So every day I get to work with people in all different professions, which to me is fascinating. And I get an education every day. I learn something from everybody I sit down and talk to. And for me, there's no greater reward. And I think that I love that when you are a journalist, you have a voice. And when you can use that voice to help people, especially when they're going through a difficult time, to me, I just feel like I'm doing some good in the world and I have a purpose. That's
awesome. So tell me, before I get into the questions, what was it you were thinking about most before we got here today? I mean, your thoughts this week, obviously you shared your bio, and you know, one of the things I like to do is I like to ask our guests to submit questions. And the reason I do that is I want to make sure that I'm asking you what you want to be asked. And so if you do get embarrassed, they're your questions, not mine. So that's my workaround. But what came to mind, because what you're going to talk about today, I think is, and I hope you'll share a little bit about your own personal experience if you're not uncomfortable with that, and we'll press you until you do give us some good nuggets. But you know, life experience is what we talk a lot about here on Happy Hour. And what I want to know from you is what was your top thought this week as you're moving towards the day? You know, some people get nervous, some people, you know, you obviously have done this a lot professionally and with yourself and others. But what was the top of your mind this week before we got here today?
Well, like I said, when we first started rolling here, it was an honor to be asked to be on your show. And every day that I get asked to speak to folks such as yourself, it really is just that. And for me, I think I'm making a difference. And that's what I want to do. I want to take away the stereotype people have when they say the word divorce. And I think I discussed this with you when we originally had a conversation. When you do the word association game, if I say a word like ice cream, your whole face lights up. And people start rattling off their favorite flavors and thinking about being on the beach or in a backyard. But then you say the word divorce and everybody's face drops. And I want to change that. We know that divorce can be difficult. We know it can be hard financially, emotionally. But you know what? There can be so many positive things that come out of it as well. And a lot of it is mindset and attitude. And that's what I am trying to shift when I write these columns. Yes, I want to educate you. Yes, I want to help you. And yes, I want to comfort you. But I also want to reassure you that there are sunny days ahead.
So do you have a definition of divorce? I mean, there's probably one in Webster's, I'm sure. I was going to look it up, but I'm curious as to what your definition is, or do you have one?
I think it's just a life-altering change. You know, we know our lives, they become familiar. So as children, we're taught to have schedules, and we make them for our kids. You know, every Monday you go to school, and after school you have soccer, and every Tuesday after school you have tennis, and you know, and baseball, and we like familiarity. And we know at the end of the day we come home to, you know, our mom and our dad, and we sit down and we have dinner, it's homework, bed, and then we do this all again tomorrow. But when you're in a divorce, there is all this uncertainty. Nobody knows where you're going to live. What is my family going to look like? What's happening here? Everything is unstable. The ground is coming out from under my feet, and everybody has all those insecurities. And it does. It just shifts everything that we know. Everything gets erased and everybody's just kind of running around figuring it out. It's a scary time. I know that. But at the same time, sometimes pieces will start falling into place and you'll be really happy how things may actually turn out. And they may turn out better.
That's great. So to our questions. So what made you shift away from the celebrity beat to cover divorce? Because that sounds about as big of a shift in transformational platforms as one can get. It'd be like someone saying to me, we know you don't exercise, but now we understand you're getting ready to train for a marathon, which hopefully sometime before the end of my life, I'll do that, but it's certainly not on the immediate horizon. So what was it that really, caused your shift? Obviously your personal experience, but tell us more.
Well, it was kind of a twofold. I was working in television and working morning, noon, and night. And all I kept saying was something I mentioned earlier. I've got to have a purpose. I have to have a purpose. What's my purpose? And then COVID happened and I had to leave my job. And in that time, I was watching all these people who were in between jobs, such as myself, taking hobbies and making new careers out of them. And I figured, okay, that's got to be my new career. But what is going to be my new career? Well, I was going through a divorce and I went to bed. Seriously, this thought and these questions just kept consuming me all day. And it was at 2 a.m, I shot up out of a dead sleep. And it was from a quote that my childhood idol, Marie Osmond, said to me when we once did an interview. And here was a woman who has overcome more heartache and more grief than anybody I know. And yet she walks in a room and she can light it up with her smile and her personality and just talk about everything that she's doing in her life. And she's at the top of her game. And I said to her, how is it that you can do this with everything that you've experienced? Well, she put her hand over mine and said, Ilyssa, sometimes life's not meant to be fair, but it's what you do with it that makes you who you are. And that's when I knew I had my calling. I shot up out of a dead sleep and I was thinking about my divorce and I went to turn on the TV to have something on in the background. And I'm just flipping through all the channels and all the networks and watching anything that was on at that hour. And I'm like, there's a political commentator, there's an entertainment commentator, there's a sports and a weather. Where's the journalist commentator? I need somebody to help me. And there wasn't one. And that's when I decided I was going to do something about it and create something that hasn't been out there. And I was going to take a really bad situation and try to be the voice to try to educate people the way all these other commentators educate us about so many other subjects they cover to help other people. And I started this at the end of September and it just exploded.
It's interesting because when you talk, you sound like a navigator. That's, and I call myself a family navigator because that's what you're going to help people do is navigate through not only your own personal experience, but also your life experience and also your professional experience. Because having the kind of platform and the connectivity you have, I used to say that I hate to go to Rotary clubs to help create systemic change because that's going to take a really long time, a small crowd every week after week. And I used to do that. So divorce journalist, there is no such thing. Never heard of it. Tell me what that is.
I get that all the time. I love being a journalist. I never wanted to give that up, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. I mean, I was an entertainment reporter for a lot of years and there's a lot of us and there's a lot of really good, talented people out there. But I always say, be the line leader. I love how we have a female vice president. I don't care what your political party is. We have a female vice president. She broke the glass ceiling for so many, and she became a voice, a different voice that we needed. I wanted to be that voice. I wanted to shatter the glass ceiling and blow the lid in a good way off the divorce community and say, look, we need somebody out there, somebody who can educate and communicate all this stuff because it is confusing. And when you are confused, and this is your life we're talking about, you get frustrated, you get angry. And if there was somebody out there who can interview all these different experts on this very complicated subject, then let me be that person. And so every day I'll interview somebody different. It could be a lawyer, it could be a financial planner, it could be an accountant. There's dating coaches and life coaches and wellness coaches and and divorce coaches. You may have to sell your home. You need to talk to a mortgage expert and a real estate expert. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's films. I talked to a couple people who did documentaries on this. So there are so many different voices that I can talk to. And what we try to do is we break it down in the best way possible so people can understand what it is that they're facing, what it is they need to know. Because the one thing people want, they want to save time, unwanted stress, and probably the most important thing they're scared of, money.
You know, the parallels of the work we do is so sad. When I hear you talk the way you're describing it, it's like people who are substance use disorders sufferers and people who are self-medicating, and all of a sudden now they have to stop, or something stopped them and they need to get help, you know, because a lot of them are overachievers and intellectualizers and logic brain makers. They think that, you know, I've got this. But you know what? When you've never done something and you've never experienced something, just hearing the list that you're putting together, who thinks about that? Most people, I would assume, you know, there's just pain, there's suffering, there's anger, there's fighting, there's resentment. And then of course there's children. And then there's the friends. Where do the friends go? I don't know. I was watching some show the other day and there was a divorce, and the guy says to his friend, look, unfortunately I have to, you know, dissolve our relationship because I have to go with my wife because she's upset with me if I don't choose. So all of those things that come into that kind of change must be, you know, catastrophic to anybody. You know, even if you don't like each other, the whole idea that if you have children, and, you know, in California, you know, everything is common interest like it is in most places, but still, I can't even imagine. And I know when I first got clean and sober and I was in Family Week, my wife was actually told that there's a 90% chance you and your husband will not be together in a year or two, because when he gets sober, if he does what he's supposed to, and you do what you're supposed to practice your program, you're going to grow apart. So we really worked hard on that because it was kind of a scary fact. And it's true. I mean, you know, all of a sudden, though, you wake up out of a fog and you're with somebody, you're like, who are you? You know, where did this all come from? So what's the feedback like? Because I know when you and I spoke, you said you threw an article, my words, you threw an article out there, and all of a sudden you got phone calls. And it sounds like you're getting overwhelmed with people who not only have interest, but are seeking knowledge to try to help bring the tools that you're creating to their relationship and to their life.
So true. I mean, the one thing that a lot of people feel is isolated. And, you know, like you said with the friends, do I go with this side? Do I go with this side? Am I allowed to be friends with both of you? How do I answer questions? I feel kind of funny because I just left this side and now I'm seeing you the following week. And so I wanted to start building a real community that people can turn to. And that's what the column started doing. Since then, I get so many emails through social media where people ask questions or people ask advice. People just need somebody to listen for the moment. And I want to say, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. It's hard to sit down and talk to somebody who hasn't walked in your shoes. They maybe can provide empathy. They may be able to provide sympathy. But unless they've experienced it, it's hard for them to say that right word that you need. But somebody who has been there, has a different mindset, and just has different words that they can say that can allay the fears you may have, that knows how to dry your tears a little bit more quickly and a little bit more delicately, where you feel a little bit better, because you don't feel good when you are going through divorce. You don't understand it. And unless somebody has walked in your shoes, nobody can understand what you're feeling. One of the biggest things I had a woman say to me, it was a really nice compliment, was she waits for my columns every day because they provide her the comfort nobody else can. And I had another woman talk about now that her ex was taking the kids, she doesn't know what to do with herself and she feels lost. I wrote a column dedicating it to her, but I can't say that. But to all the women out there who are just like, okay, what do I do now? And I said, we're getting Vogue. And what it meant was, look down at that calendar. Monday through Friday, when we are so busy with our kids, we hit the ground running, making them lunches and breakfast and coordinating carpools and packing the book bags and running to work and trying to make the meeting for work. And on the weekends, all the activities and birthday parties. And now when your kids are with the other side, look down at that calendar and it's empty. And for the first time, you can take ownership of your life and do things for you. And it doesn't have to be expensive, because we know money can be tight, but it can be little things that you can do, such as staying in bed and binge watching something that you've been wanting to see. It can be getting yourself a manicure. They don't have to cost a lot. You can do them for under $15. It can be taking a walk now that the weather's getting nice, and just listening to the kind of music you want, not something in the radio, in the car that your kids want. And those little things that you do for you will just make you appreciate yourself and reward yourself for the hard work that you do. And I tell people to really embrace it and know that, be happy for your kids, you know, when they're with their mom or their dad, whichever side that we're talking about. Leave your anger at the door. Your kids did not ask to be a part of this, and not focus on what they're doing. Focus on yourself. We don't do that enough. We are so busy juggling so many moving parts. We don't take that time. Take the time. You're allowed.
We call that practicing self-care, and I'm sure you do as well, and also being mindful of and using mindfulness as one of the great tools to make sure that you're on the daily list of things to do, and maybe not the first thing, but at least on the list, so you get to it. So what are your goals right now and how long have you been on this journey? I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but when was the decision made that you were going to shift in your relationship? How long ago was that?
I filed for divorce in February of 2018, and it's been a journey. Not a fun one, but it has been a journey. But what I like to tell people is that you have to take those experiences and learn from them. And sometimes it's a tough lesson, but it can be the greatest education you ever will receive. And the way to look at it that way is to change your attitude. And I'm sure you talk to your clients and your patients about this all the time. I got asked in another interview, so you file for divorce, you run to the attorney. No, you run to the accountant, you run to the financial planner, and you learn where the money is, because that's what it all boils down to. You know, it boils down to money and the kids. And if you have minor children, it's going to probably work out to a 50-50 custody, or you're going to see them equally, which kids want. So let it go. Okay, let it go. Let them have the love of both parents. Focus on the money. And I don't say that to be greedy. I say that because that's what we all need to survive. That's what we need to keep a roof over our head and the lights on and food on the table. And if you don't know where that is, you are not going to be able to survive. And that really is what my column is all about, surviving and thriving. So get an education, pay attention to the things that you need. I know it sounds cold, but most people will say you have to treat it like a business and you're dissolving a company. And that's what you are. But it doesn't have to mean that for your kids, that you're breaking up a family. I hate when people say that. It's just, it's going to look a little different. And the one thing that it's going to do, it's going to make everybody happier. Kids should not be in a home where parents are fighting. Kids should not be in a home where they see parents sleeping in separate rooms or having separate lives. Kids need unity. Kids need peace and calm, so they too, and I will go back to those words, survive and thrive. And that's what we owe them. So take the advice from every column and really use it to your advantage. These experts are here to help you. And we are here to help navigate and teach you and educate you. And I always stress those words repeatedly because they are so important. And I do want to make a difference. Like I said earlier, I want to shift. When people say the word divorce, you're getting divorced. Oh, I'm so sorry. And the face goes down. No, don't say sorry. Maybe it's for a good thing. Maybe it's for a better outcome. Maybe it's just because it's better for the family unit. So don't make somebody feel bad about their decision. Just try to support them. That's what people need. That's why people are so scared to say, I'm getting divorced or I'm divorced, because they're scared of what the reaction is going to be. Don't let it be a bad one. Sometimes try to be encouraging.
Well, and you know, nothing's permanent, right? I mean, sometimes things have to change in any relationship, whether it's business or personal. So how do you come up with your ideas around what you do?
Well, as a journalist, we are always trained to think of different angles. So when news breaks, we're like, okay, everybody's reporting on what's now, but people are going to get tired of it. Why should they go to your network when they're getting it from, the one they're already watching? We have to think of that new path that we can take to take it to the next level. We want to own the story. And that's where I come in. So every day I am always thinking of that new angle. I really sometimes just dig down into things that I've experienced to ask the questions. Chances are everybody else is going through it. On my Clubhouse discussion, a lot of times people will throw questions at me and I'll sit there with a pen and paper and write things down, or they'll address things to the panel that we book and that we have every Wednesday and every Sunday. And I write things down. I'm like, that's a good idea for a column. People say things, people will just ask me questions. But a lot of it I just base on things that I've experienced. And it's all about, how do I start over? Where do I find the money? I didn't know anything about it. In terms of divorce, what happens if this happens in a courtroom? How do I prepare? We just did a column, how to prepare for a deposition or walking into a courtroom when you have to face a judge. The topics just always vary, but I was trained very early on in my career, like, don't focus on the news of what's happening. Everybody else knows that. Think of how we can take it to a different angle, so everybody wants to tune in and watch us.
So how do you see family law attorneys looking at you? They see you as a compliment? They see you as a threat? What do you think?
Definitely not a threat. We need our lawyers. I love when I can interview my lawyers. They are, listen, for the most part, if you don't work in mediation, you're going to work with a lawyer. And so the lawyers are so important for us to interview. And listen, they're all not bad. You're always going to have a few that are, but that can be in any profession. But these lawyers are here to help really dissect and really help you understand, if you have to call somebody such as them, what you need to know when you walk through the front door. They do charge a lot of money. And yes, I understand that that's a big thing people have a problem with, but they're also there to help you. They're there to be your advocate. So working with them is the best outcome you can get for your situation. I love working with them. They teach me so much about the legal system.
It's funny about that financial thing. I have I call it experience fee when I charge people for what I do. And I have people push back and say, that's a lot of money. I said, well, I am bringing 36 plus years experience to the table. And you know what? If having to pay someone a reasonable amount of money changes the way you think and look at your family, to me, that's fine. You know what? If you can help yourself, excellent. But if you need outside support, it's like any other expertise, you're going to have to pay for it, from, as you said earlier, getting your nails done, and I don't, by the way, I'm going to have you talk to my kids about, and they're a little older, about where they can get their nails done for $15. Because, between that and eyebrows, I worked part-time on another job for many years to make sure that they felt they were comfortable when they went to school. So tell me, this is kind of a goofy question, is it safe to assume that the majority of your clients are women?
Not necessarily. I mean, I would say a little bit more, yes. But I think it's because men feel that they have to be macho and they're not supposed to talk about it and they're not supposed to wear their emotions on their sleeve. But, men go through this too. And it's a big shift for them as well. And, and I think it impacts and affects everybody very differently. And again, it all breaks down to what the circumstances were for the divorce. Hopefully it's not for a third party. That's very difficult for anybody to digest. But the bottom line is just that it is a big change in what you've known for so many years. And I think men go through a lot of heartache and a lot of heartbreak and a lot of misery, just like women do. It's just changing everything in our lives. And we all like familiarity. We all like stability. We all like security. That's all gone. And what makes it even worse is that if the situation becomes nasty and ugly and contentious. They'll throw all these words at you. It just makes everything that much more stressful. Divorce is stressful. Even the amicable ones are stressful because it all boils down to a big change in lifestyle, the money and who's doing what. And sometimes, you know, with the kids, because everybody's schedules change and everybody sometimes doesn't want to compromise. Sometimes they just can't. And so for that reason, I think, yes, it does definitely affects everybody. And yes, it does affect men. I get a lot of them coming to me for advice from a female's point of view. But I think a lot of them, it takes a while for them to get there just because of how their minds are programmed and set. Like, oh, we have to be macho. No, you're allowed to have feelings. This is affecting you too.
So when you're talking to people, do you also potentially, I teed that one up to ask this one, do you think, or are you actually potentially working with a couple as well, not as as a mediator, but more as kind of a navigator? And I heard you use the word, and I think if you're not something, it's not something you're using, because when I hear you talk, that's what it sounds like, a great way to be able to help the whole family, and you know, with kids, whether you're talking to them directly or indirectly, but maybe helping that particular individual you have in front of you to you know, navigate their next steps and get them to level of expertise. And I know you mentioned earlier talking to my wife, she's a realtor, and I have a daughter who's an attorney. And, you know, we're trying to get the whole family on board since we have a level of empathy for others, and we know that things happen, and that it's important to get access to the best and highest level of support, no matter who it is in the family structure. And then, of course, the other trickle-down pieces of the, you know, the outlaws, if you will, the in-laws and the other cousins and other parts of the family, because it can be, obviously, as you know, a catastrophic event. So the question is, do you potentially help couples as well? Is that something you've done?
Well, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a lawyer. I can't do your finances. But what I can do is I can talk to you as a friend, and I can talk to you as an expert who's interviewed all these people. And as a journalist, we don't take sides. You know, we stay neutral. Our job is to talk to all parties involved in a story and tell it as accurately as possible. And that's what I would always do for anybody who comes to me. I'm not taking your side and I'm not taking their side. I will just listen to everything. And then based on what I've learned from the experts I've interviewed, I will give you the best advice possible and information that they've shared with me, that if you haven't read the column, I will share with you.
Okay. So I have a couple more questions, but before I forget, I want you to, do you have actually a formal title or a headline for yourself? I know we've talked about divorce journalist and columnist, but what is your formal handle? What do you call yourself?
That is really what I call myself, because that's really what I am. Like I just said, I am not a therapist. I don't have a PhD, and I'm not a lawyer. I didn't go to law school. I'm just a journalist, and I just have the wonderful honor of talking to all these people and asking them questions that readers want to know, and our listeners when we're on Clubhouse. And I think that's the greatest thing that I can do with my position, is take what I've done for so many years and just channel it through something that I've gone personally and I saw a need out there for. And again, I go back to the day that I was shifting through every single channel and I was just yelling while I was holding the remote, like, where's the divorce journalist? Like, I don't want to hear any more about sports and entertainment and the election and COVID, because, you know, there was medical correspondents all the time and experts. Where's the one who can talk to me about divorce? There wasn't one. And as you said in the beginning of this discussion, divorce rates are going up. People are always going to be getting divorced. And that means people are going to be seeking information. And that's where I come in.
Okay, well, that's great. So through your writing is where you're gleaning the questions people have, and that's why they're seeking you. I have a weird feeling you may be changing your title a little bit down the road, especially if you're spending more time answering questions, because once your subject matter gets out there and you become a subject matter expert and a thought leader, as you know, as a journalist, your phone will start to ring in a way. And it's funny, I'm probably getting in trouble for saying this, but, you know, as Michael knows, I'm too old to really start worrying about what everybody thinks. But I would suggest if you get a chance that, you know, if you ever get to a point where you're charging charging fees for your expertise. And my sense is at some point you charge men more because the insight you'll have will be even greater. So next question, what have we, and Mike's going to ask you a question in a second, but what have I not asked you today? Or what question would you like to be asked that we haven't asked that you'd like to answer? Meaning, give us a nugget of something that you think we really need to know that we haven't asked you.
That's a good one.
I saved a good one for the end. I mean, I've only got one good one. That's it. So take a second.
I think it was something somebody told me very, very early on, that when you file for a divorce, you're going to go through a very long experience, or as they call it, a journey, which I've said a few times during our discussion. You're going to start out as one person and come out somebody totally different. And different is not always bad. I learned in my personal journey that I came out completely revamped. And I'll go back to the word different. And I like who I am now. I like who I am a lot. It doesn't mean that there weren't tears, and there doesn't mean that there aren't days that you are scared about the unknown. But I think what you do is you learn a lot about yourself in the process. And one thing I try to encourage people, have a date night with yourself, or it could be a date day, something you just do by yourself. Spend that alone time with you. Get down to everything and just replay everything of what brought you here and what you want going forward. And you'll start really discovering a lot about yourself, and it will help you get that right mindset to find your new path. And once you're on it, they will say this all the time during a divorce, the sun will shine again. Don't worry, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to feel the sun and you're going to see that light, and then you're going to start bolting towards it.
Well, you have such a great melodic way of sharing about something that's very difficult to talk about. And, I really appreciate that. So I'm going to throw it over to Mike. He always asks the best question of the interview, and then we're going to give it back to you. And please don't forget to tell everybody how to get a hold of you if you want them getting a hold of you, or where to find your writing or your blogs, or how to really access some of the great work that you've done so far. And I see a big future, hopefully, in our journey working together, because my sense would be couples do have issues around substance abuse and alcohol as well, but we'll talk more about that, maybe on Clubhouse. So Michael, question from you for Ilyssa.
Yeah. Ilyssa, I was just wondering, you've found success in your column and in the Clubhouse. What do you see as a future goal to move on from there, or to add to that? Is there like a book in the works, or a YouTube channel, something of that nature?
Well, it's funny you should ask. We are actually building a radio show right now that is going to be based a lot on the columns. And I hope to be able to talk more about that in the next few weeks. I would love to write a book. I want it to really have the voice of the columns. And it's something that I even tell my own children, that when they say to me, Mommy, good news, bad news, I always say, we start with the bad and we end with the good. Every column always ends with 5 things you need to know to survive and thrive during and after divorce. That's the name of the series. So we're going to get into, which is, I know, Scott, what we're doing with your column, we're going to get into all the things you need to know, which may not be fun, but it's the things you need to know. But we're going to always end on that high note. And again, I really want to shift the whole divorce mindset and let people know that it may be bad right now, but there's so many good things that can happen. I mean, if it wasn't for my divorce, I would never be covering this beat. And I have never been so excited by anything than waking up every day and getting to interview all these people and learn so much, and the difference I'm making in people's lives. I really do cry when I read some of the comments and when people reach out to me, and please reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Come on to Clubhouse, jump on a discussion with me every Wednesday, every Sunday. That's really why I shifted.
I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today, and you and Scott have a great rapport. So I'm sure that once you do Scott's interview, it'll turn out well as well. Now, you already given us a really good quote from Marie Osmond. I hope you have another one to see us out for the end of the show. Do you?
I do.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and give us that? Go ahead.
It's from the movie Finding Nemo and Ellen DeGeneres' character, Dory. And I call it more of a chant. And she always chants throughout the film, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And she says that because the main fish who's trying to find his son, Nemo, constantly gets knocked down and setback after setback. And her thing is, you got to just keep swimming in the big ocean. And if you want to find your son, you got to just keep swimming. So don't let anything stop you. If you get knocked down, dust yourself off, get back up. And it's like Dory said, just keep swimming.